Hey guys, it's model making time and we're here at Scale Model World 2024. This year the show at Telford is busier than ever, or at least busier since the pandemic. There is so much to see here at the show and we're going to go have a look at every single display. And then, well, in another video we'll have a look at what's new with each manufacturer. Let's get into it. So today we're starting with Four Corners. This is one we've seen at the show last year, and they have a lot of amazing dioramas on display, including the humorous Pigeon Break. We're then heading over to Barnet, and their Millennium Falcon is very attention grabbing, along with their HS129, which is also relatively front and centre. A really varied display and bringing a character to the front of the show. Continuing in the green is Harrow. Harrow also have a very varied display, this time having a lot of sort of profiles of figures, which is something I've never been very good at, but they were incredibly done, and a lot of just really unique and interesting subjects. Wakefield were actually the first one in the display that we saw. Unfortunately, my camera did not do a good job with this, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe it was just overwhelmed by the incredible work showcasing 75 years of NATO, including this ginormous B-52 that dominated the display. The Mosquito Sig, and you'll see many of these sorts of SIGs during the course of the show, is just that, something that focuses purely on mosquitoes, and I've never actually built one. Maybe this will convince me this year. We then head over to the 30-second SIG, and I joked with the person manning the stand at the time about the fact that I've not actually built a 30 seconds kit. And I said, well, I'm building my 70-second Concorde, that's about the same size, so does that count? Either way, I wish I had the talent to build these amazing behemoths of the modelling scene, because they are incredible, and the level of detail, superb. West Cornwall is a stand I'm not actually sure if I've ever seen before. I probably have and don't remember them, but I really loved the German Canberra on display, and again, another B-52 but flying. Weirdly, there were a lot of B-52s at the show this year. We then headed over to this really unique display of Chelmsford, including an endoskeleton from Terminator, which I absolutely loved, and some really cool London buses with unique artwork. Heading over to one of my favourites is the French Air Forces, because it does naval and army de l'air, and the French army, which is the army de terre, and I just love this stand, going all the way from sort of the World War II era up to the modern era. Surprisingly little from sort of prior to that, but I guess that's based on technicalities. But I really love this display. And then next to that we have the Mirage Sig, which of course actually has the Rafale as well, which I guess is the lineage of the Mirage. It's kind of more of a Dassault stand, I guess, but again, I really love this, and this hard shelter one I just thought was really cool. The really wild SIG is just really unique in modelling, because there used to be a lot more focus on sort of wildlife. You know, Airfix used to have their range, Hella used to have their range. Not sure on Ravel, but you'll see in this display that there's a lot of other things in here too, including a Balrog, which was painting fabulously. And we also had just some mythical creatures. I really love this display, and I think this is something we need to see more of in modelling, things that are not just military vehicles. Modelling is such a wide and varied hobby. We then get to see some of the V-bombers, which is the Vulcan and Victor at the back that are both in anti-flash reflective schemes. But they had this really unique scheme in the middle of red, including a rotodome in sort of a Red Arrows support aircraft, I suppose, alongside a couple of Red Arrows-esque aircraft, including a Typhoon and of course the legendary Hawk. What a lovely display. The Hawker, Typhoon, Tempest and Sea Fury SIG is, again, just focused on those three aircraft, but I did love seeing the Sea Furies all lined up. It was really cool. We then headed over to the Hunter, which I imagine is going to be a very popular subject given Ravel's news release, but maybe we'll need to talk about that in the next video. heading over to Letchworth, and we have some helicopters front and centre, which is not something you always see, and we have an F-117, which I've also just built. This Napoleonic Wars chess game we talked about in a previous video, so go and check that out if you do want to learn exactly the history of the sort of the kit that they made there, or I say multiple kits that they put together. We then have Sprues Are Us. A lot of new things on here and a lot of really unusual subjects, including Indian aircraft, and then we also have some locomotives too, and a B-Wing from Star Wars, which is actually my favourite of the sort of original series fighters and bomber aircraft. The Luftwaffe SIG, of course, focusing on the Luftwaffe throughout its history, including what I think is some bolt action figures to the side as well. There's a HE-111 on here as well. We all know I love that aircraft. We then have the Yasta 124 SIG looking at the Fokker triplane in 1/24 scale. Onto the Leopard SIG, which I, for some reason, used to always pronounce Leopard, but the Leopard SIG looks at the Leopard tank, and because that's such a widespread, wide usage tank, so many different schemes to choose from, and it's a really cool SIG. I'm not one for tanks, but I really enjoy it. Then we have a SIG I don't think I've seen before, which is the UK and Commonwealth SIG, or the Armed Forces of the UK and Commonwealth, which was just a really interesting selection. There's a lot on here. I guess a lot of these things could probably fit into other SIGs as well, but seeing things like this Singaporean Jet Provost and the scanner in sort of South African colours, it was just really interesting. A SIG that has definitely grown with time is the Electronic Warfare SIG, the SL-71 sitting front and centre, although I'm not sure if that's the name of the Electronic Warfare variant. We also have this F-35, which I think is new to the stand. Langley Moore with balloons. Balloons seem to be a lot more common this year. I don't know why, but seem to be a bit more of a common theme. But I really love the purple that was on display on their stand. It just looked really lovely and helped everything pop so nicely. And I love the dioramas in the middle. You're making use of Airfix's old D-Day set. Airfix, please re-release them. I love them and I think they're so cool to play with. We weren't really sure the name of this, but I put down the Star Wars SIG. But this was just really cool. A load of Star Wars, I guess, memorabilia and also models on display. And then we had the tank transportation SIG. Now this is a SIG I don't really know a lot about because I barely know tanks. I definitely don't know transporters, so I just took pictures of the ones I felt looked the best. Starting with the ship from One Piece, we have Cleveland, who has quite a lot of anime on display, I guess, with Digimon and also some Gundam on display, and then Warhammer at the front. And they had an impressive Enterprise that we'll see shortly that was fully lit up. A really varied display, and we're starting to see a lot more Gunpla with a couple of stands dedicated almost entirely to this, I guess, new craft to the West. Obviously it's been popular in Japan for a long time, but is really starting to penetrate the Western market. The Sea of Grey is the F-16 SIG. Okay, I joke, it's not just a Sea of Grey, there are so many different display schemes in here, and a lot of just different camouflage schemes. Again, the F-16 having such varied usage, it's one of the most dominant aircraft, I guess, in the world's inventory. They even had the F-16XL, which was like a full Delta variant of the F-16 that never really came to fruition, and they also had a couple of the Netherlands display team schemes in here as well, so I always thought that was really cool. Tornado SIG, and as we talked about at Fairford in my video on that, if you want to go check that out, the Tornado is reaching the end of its service life unfortunately and is going to vanish from the sky soon. I think Saudi Arabia is potentially going to be one of the last operators of the type. Obviously the UK has retired theirs, Germany and Italy still fly the type, but they're not going to be flying it for much longer either. And then, well, that'll be it. One of the most legendary aircraft in British aviation history will no longer exist. Now this incredible display, I spoke to the creator and they were just talking about how it's just a lot of their pictures that they've taken over time, or pictures they've been given, or sort of different like themes that they found, and they'll just make it and try and reflect this period of history, this 1930s aviation, or I think it's sort of 20s to 30s aviation, which is so often forgotten, even though it's a very colourful time in aviation. And I just love this. I think this was here last year as well, and it's just still absolutely stunning. And then we head over to Rex and Wings. Well, we've seen it many a show, and still a fabulous display. They did say it's not as full as they were hoping it to be, but I said it's quality, not the quantity, because they definitely always have a fabulous display. And this Lysander, I know I've seen this before, I've taken pictures of it before, but still looks amazing. We then had Rotherham and Sheffield with a Pacific theme, and I just really liked this. I like seeing the J10. The J10 was another breakout this year, I guess, which is weird because I built a J10 years ago. I was ahead of the trend, guys. I joke every year, but one day there will be a CT4 on the New Zealand SIG stand, and then I will, well, it will feel complete. But yes, New Zealand SIG. Lovely SIG that has definitely been growing, and it's just gone from strength to strength each era, or even each show that I've seen it. The Trams of York and Districts display that we remember from last year. They're amazing sort of cityscape dioramas that continue to thrill me each time I see them. The aviation section in the middle is still just dominated by the large scenes that they've created. Bridlington and the Worlds have some lovely displays, including the Jet Provost I see at front, which is sort of like, I think it's meant to be like an airshow setting with people sort of standing in front of it to review it, and this amazing, incredible Lancaster, which is, it's super. Again, I just don't know how people do these massive displays. It's incredible. Battle of Britain is another regular SIG that we see at Telford each year, and it's one I continue to absolutely admire and adore, and just every time I end up going to Telford I end up watching the Battle at Britain film, because how could you not? The Buccaneer Sig is another Sig that we see quite regularly at Telford, and although I think this is a smaller table than they had last year, it doesn't stop it being any less spectacular. The South African scene, which unfortunately I got slightly out of focus at the front, and this full white schema for, I think this is the first version of the Buccaneer. We then head over to United States Army Air Force in Europe, and again this is spectacular, some incredible work on the B-17s, including the lovely polka dot version. Of course, one near and dear to my heart is the Aerobatic Display Team Sig, as I build a lot of Aerobatic Display Team aircraft myself. This year was a dedication to the Hunter and its, well, prolific use in aerobatic display teams. Now, I'm someone who I feel is quite clued up on air display teams, and I knew most of these, but there were some display teams, particularly from the Middle East, that I did not know existed. So, amazing display as usual, guys, and the centerpiece of the 22 Leaf is just superb. The Hawker Hurricane Sig, again, is its namesake. We've seen this a couple of times, including at the Hurricane event that I went to at Duxford, which was hosted by Airfix. I really enjoyed this Sig, and every time I see the Italian one, I love it. And next to that, of course, is the Spitfire Sig. I guess with the Spitfire Sig, I would love to see more countries, because the Spitfire was served everywhere, but there were a couple of really cool and unique variants here. And keeping on the theme, we had the Warbird Sig. Again, this just looks at any warbirds rather than being specific to any particular type, and there are some types that you don't see as often here, things like the P40. This F4U though was absolutely gorgeous. We then headed over to Bomber Command, where we could see all manner of scales and types of aircraft used by, well, Bomber Command. West Riding had a lovely display with some really active typhoons in the centre of several scales, which I just thought was fabulous. I don't know what made them choose that particular display type, but it just really stood out. We then handed over to Mid Sussex with an army of Daleks at the front, which I absolutely adored. And, well, again, we have several Star Trek models. It's really interesting to see how much the modelscape has changed over time, with sci-fi becoming more and more accepted in the model mainstream. We've gone from having just military aircraft everywhere to having a wide selection, as wonderfully demonstrated here with, well, this Garfield. Now I'm going to butcher the name, but is it Modelé Dragoch? Red Dragon Modelers, obviously a Welsh club. Sorry if I absolutely butchered the Welsh there, my Welsh is pretty bad, but a fabulous display here. I've always thought this is just always a very active display, although I did worry about how fast the Lancaster's props were going. They were very, very fast, which was really cool to see. I was just like, that looks like, I don't know how that's going to stay up for so long. We had a Wallace and Gromit here and Battlestar Galactica and a load of other movie references, including the Italian Job. I think I took pictures of that last year, so I tried to get some different things here, including the incredible work on the Lord of the Rings things that you're going to see in a moment, including Shelob, and that diorama is amazing. Heading over to Farnborough, and I actually spoke to a couple of you guys when you were handing out the wristbands at the start of the show. This is a really organised and structured display. I really love this Concorde production plant. I don't think I've ever really seen anything like this. I've seen a couple that are like more complete models, but it's just the sheer intricacy and busyness of that display is just incredible. Heading over to Phil Fangs is just film references with a theme of, I guess, beasts this year, including things from Starship Trooper and Jurassic Park. The F-14 SIG will forever be synonymous with Top Gun, and they lean into that very well. It always remains a really lovely display though, with historic examples of the F-14 and some, well, more fictional variants. There is an Iranian F-14 on the table, along with, again, lots of references to Top Gun. The Havria SIG is a massive table and always has a lot of presence at pretty much every show it goes to, but that doesn't stop them coming up with new and creative ideas that keep everyone engaged with the stand, and that includes this year that spotty variant that we're going to have a closer look at shortly. The Asian Air Arm SIG is one I really enjoy. I've actually built a couple of Chinese aircraft already, and I wish we had more Indian aircraft. I've tried to build the Indian display team that we see here as well, which is Surya Karan, and I built this on 1/72 scale. I got the tail on mine wrong, but it's one of my really early examples, so I really love seeing this table. I have a feeling red and green are the dominant tablecloth colours this year. Blue is always there, but I think these are the main alternate colours. With a Pacific theme, they also had other Pacific aircraft at the end, including a B-29 and a new P-8 Poseidon. Really interesting display, and something quite often overlooked, I think. An ever-present icon at Telford is the Japanese aviation sig, and this year didn't disappoint. An absolutely stunning display of Japanese aviation. We then headed over to Mildenhall, and I mean, my main thing on this was just they had a giant HE111 Zweiling, but we actually have two of these at the show this year, which is really interesting because you don't see them that often. Now we are obviously at Israel, and we're going to avoid all the politics of this. I just want to make it clear, like, this is a display about modelling, but it was a really lovely display, a really good representation of lots of different types throughout its service, including this lovely B-17. One of the big contributors of Telford's international participants is this Polish stand, and this year it was also absolutely phenomenal. They had so many different types of modelling on display, and they were very proudly displaying their accomplishments. This XB-17 Valkyrie in the middle though is just next level. And something I don't think we've ever seen before, a stand from Pakistan. So welcome, really glad you could be here at Telford this year, and they did a Pakistani J10, which I absolutely love. I've only ever seen the Chinese ones, and again, there seemed to be a theme this year, there were quite a few of them. A stand I think we've seen before is here from Slovakia, a couple of dynos on display, along with some aircraft in different situations and the little cookies that Mr. Modeler thoroughly enjoyed. Yeah, really lovely display yet again. For some reason I didn't record this one. I thought I had twice, so apologies to Milano, but they had a T-33 theme. And then we had Cologne Pirates, who seem to have a bit of an experimental theme, I guess, because it's food for wrecked nerves. But I mainly took that to look at the F-15 they had there. Keeping on the international theme is Model Sport Club Berlin. Had a quick chat to the person holding down the stand, and they said it's really difficult to even go and have a look around Telford in the 2 days that it's hosted for, and I agree, it's really hard. I basically work the entire day to do this video and then get to enjoy a little bit of it the next day, but not as much as you'd hope because I have to edit all this as well. And then we have Ireland, and I think they did add some stuff later on, so I do apologise, I don't think it's a full stand bit. I have to like just start filming really early in the day or I never get it finished. Really love the tributes to Titanic, that was really, really cool. Gulf War stick is another one we see very regularly and shows participants from both sides of the Gulf War. Models for Heroes is an incredible charity, and I do recommend you go and check out their website and see if you can support them. They do have a lot of merch on sale as well, but you can also, I guess, just donate to them. And they had this Rivet Counter Challenge here. Really lovely display as well, just showing all the work and how this can really help people and their mental health. I'm not even going to try and say the name of this because I don't know how to, but I remember this from a few years ago because of the French tank on display, and it's still impressive. Now, I'm not sure if we've seen this one from Belgium before. I don't recognise the name, but it was an amazing display. And that MiG-29, I'll take a picture of it, but it went all the way underneath as well. It was amazing work. And this has to be one of the most organised displays I've seen. Again, I'm not even going to try and say that name. But they had a really cool sort of, I guess, like air show stand right at the end, which I've got a few pictures of. It's just amazing. A really colourful display from Plastic Model Battle Club Plus. Probably said that completely wrong, but I tried. But a really, really colourful and wonderful display. And next to that was Deutschland, IPMS Deutschland, which continued with the colour and vibrancy, including a massive Pokemon section, which they seem to have every year. This also had a very special model for me, which is actually, for me, the star of the show. So this is something I'm just putting in here, say like, this is just my pick of the entire show. And yeah, so my star of the show, did not expect this at all as this like combine harvester, because I just thought this was really, really well done, an incredible diorama. And the weathering, everything about it, absolutely fabulous. Then we head over to big scale Bavaria. Unsurprisingly, all on bigger scales, but there was an incredible privateer bomber, which I've never seen one on this scale. Plastic Molabal Bodens? I don't know how to say it, but I'm trying. I like how they've displayed the models on like not just square bases, but they've done them all slightly different shapes. That's really like a unique way of doing it. And they did come out and clean some of them as well, which I thought was really cool for them to do. We then have Netherlands. Really colourful to stand with that vibrant, I guess, anime-esque. I think it was an F22 right at the end, and they were hard at work, like still doing modelling the whole time, which I think is the best way to spend the weekend, but also showed the fun of the hobby with the sort of polystyrene gliders. Another club I'm unable to say the name of, but they had some really cool World War I Rolls-Royce armoured cars, which I just think they always look so cool. This French stand had a couple of unique subjects as well, including the Ballon d'Os that you can see right in the middle, but they also had a number of sort of miniatures right at the side, which I've captured here because these were just really cool like mini dioramas. Portugal was one that I seem to remember having a more absent display last year, but this year they've come full force with all of that display, and it looks so wonderful and colourful, and I just love everything about it. Really lovely little display. Swiss display was very different to what they usually have. I'm used to seeing like the same couple of displays, and this one was just really different. This giant diorama. I don't know, like it's really different, like in a good way. I just wasn't expecting it. Then we head over to Novi Sad, or, well, for most people probably know it's just as standard looks as Serbian and Yugoslavian subjects. I was going to go to the show one year, but It didn't really work out for me. Maybe one day I'll still end up going, but for now I get to admire things like this J-22 and the G4 Super Collab, some of my favourite aircraft. I've always had a weird fascination with Yugoslavian aviation because it was just so out there and they did so much. And then probably the largest models you're going to see, as with, well, the Large Model Association, these are insanely huge. We now enter Hall 2 with the US Naval Aircraft SIG. Really love the background with the flags as well. And they did have a couple of British things on display, it seemed, as well. Now, the next couple of SIGs I'm not really going to talk too much about because I don't know enough about aircraft, carriers, or really any real naval vessels. Safe to say though, these displays were phenomenal. Apologies, I just don't know enough about like naval stuff to really be able to like be of any help, so yeah, I'll let you guys have as much fun as you can in the comment section talking about all the naval things we've just seen. But we're now over here at Chiltern and they complete the V-Bomber collection that we've seen so far with a Valiant here, which looks amazing again in anti-flash white, so all three we've seen so far have that. And there's B-17 in a mixed camouflage scheme, and a C-47, which just the weathering on this is spectacular. The Association of London Modellers explained that they like to have a lot of fun with their modelling. They do various little competitions within their own club to encourage people to push their boundaries and also to make sure that they're just having fun with the hobby too. I really enjoyed the two X-Wing figures that they had on display, one in the RAF scheme that I think we've seen a few times, one in a desert scheme which I don't think I have seen before, and they just had a lot of really unique displays. We then head over to Caen, which, if you know me, you already know which one I'm looking at here. That's our 105 in the Austrian Tiger scheme. Honestly, stand out. And then we've got some Macross here, which I've not really seen at Telford before, and it's something I keep meaning to watch and then never do, but I have a Macross to do thanks to one of you lovely viewers, so maybe I should get into that. Given that my dad used to fly in these, I always love seeing things like the Hercules, and seeing so many of them together on one stand just really made me feel, I don't know, it just felt really, really nice, and there was so much amazing work on here. Well done to everyone involved. And then we had the United States Air Force SIG, which was obviously having a theme of swing wings, because they had a main focus of the F-111 and the B-1B. Now, each time you see cars, I'm not going to talk too much about them because I don't know enough about them. So again, you guys in the comments, tell everyone about all the cars on display. But this stand from Swindon had a wide range of cars from different eras. That's probably about all I can tell you though. And then we head over to Avon. Avon had this really cool NHS Hawk still. It's something that's, I guess, from the COVID era, but still has prevalence. And this, I think it's a Tiger tank exploding, which I just thought looked amazing. Now the Recce and Military Transport 6 were both on display here together. I initially got really confused when I saw them because I couldn't work out how they all fit together, but then obviously it made a lot more sense. Then Tangmere, I hope I've said that right, has a lot of F1s. I don't know anything about F1, but they look really pretty. That's about all I know. Vehicles in general are not my strong point. I'm much more of an aviation girly, whether that's sort of World War One all the way up to modern, or helicopters as well, but sadly vehicles are not my strong point. That's not to say that I don't appreciate them, because I can see the absolute work and dedication that goes into them. Whether they're these motorbikes over here, or the F1s we looked at earlier, they look absolutely amazing. Southhand had an amazing creation, and that was a panther tank that was pink that also played the Pink Panther. Now, they did hold it out to me so I could try and hear it and record it, but unfortunately it just didn't pick up the sound. But I promise you, it played the Pink Panther theme, and it was really cool. This overall display was so varied, and they had a lot of really comical things on display, including the mouse tank going towards the mouse trap, which was just really cool. It was, again, an amazing display. And also the grass on this, superb. We now get to sort of the Scottish contingents of the show, because they seem to all be grouped together. We have Glasgow. And then we head over to East Nuke, if I've said that correctly. I hope I have, or if, I don't know if it's an abbreviation, I'm not sure, but a really lovely display. On the sort of more traditional square bases, a lot of sort of naval aircraft and a couple of gannets, but a fantastic display. And I really love the Jeep with the weathering. I think it's a Jeep anyway. Then head over to Edinburgh. Again, more Scottish, and there is a lot of tanks to the front, which, hey, for some people that's their jam, to build the same thing over and over again. I can't blame them. I built a million Fuga Magisters, so, you know. But they had a varied display, and I love dioramas. I love this Japanese diorama. I love the amphibious tanks of the Japan. They just look so utterly bizarre. And then we have Dundee. You have a B-24, and what I always think of like as the shell B-24, even though it's not, because the shell came later, but because it's sort of like red and then yellow inside, it just looks like the shell logo to me, just like as a circle instead. And then we have Rubicon models and Stoke-on-Trent. I have put them together just because this video is already going to be long enough and it's going to be difficult to do all the tagging anyway, so I do apologise that I sort of lumped both of you together, but I know you tend to go hand in hand when you're at shows together. This show was, again, another spectacular display. I knew Stoke was like one of the really early adopters of doing dioramas, and particularly doing really interesting subjects as dioramas you don't always see elsewhere, and they continue to do that trend whilst also doing some more traditional modelling. I really like the HE111 in grayscale with a grayscale map below it. I think that's probably my favourite on the display. I don't know if I've seen that before with them, but either way, I absolutely loved it. I've definitely taken pictures of Russian Winterfell and a couple of the other ones, but what can I say? They're amazing models. The Scottish Aviation Sig, it's one I think I've seen before, but Again, there's so much variety in this. It could be literally aviation made in Scotland, or it could be aircraft that were based in Scotland. Rivenol is a very aircraft based table, which is great for me because it means I actually know what's on the table. And they had a couple of really unique tanks, mostly from sort of pre-World War II, where they have multiple turrets, which, you know, died kind of with World War II. But this Mirage 2000 I thought was an excellent example of the type. We then head over to Clacton, and I really like how they spread everything out. I love the hind and the back as well with the tyke tail. I actually started building one of them in 1/72 scale, but sadly never got the chance to finish it. But you did an amazing job on yours, along with all the other models on your display. West Norfolk is one of the many tables that has a Lysander on display. I don't know if people just had a hunch that Lysanders were going to be popular, because Airfix have just announced their 148 one, something we'll talk about in my what's new video, but they had one on display here. It's a design. On West Norfolk, I really liked that they had a Mustang, but it was the really old era Mustang. The Mustang and RAF colours always just looks a bit funny to me anyway, but I just really enjoyed the example you had here. Splashdicks has to be one of my favourite, just because the backdrop itself is already so colourful, but float planes tend to have so much personality and character to them as well. And not only have they just taken sort of seaplanes or flying boats, but they've done them in interesting scenes too, including the one where it's being pulled by an elephant. I just love this display. Every single year it brings a smile to my face. The British Bulldogs have one of the most unique kits on display, and that is a wooden teacup ride that is motorised. No, I'm not kidding, look at it there, it's incredible. I can't wait to see more of these in the future. South East London had the first of many Nimrods that we're going to see in the show today, but this was one of the few that was actually unconverted, and there's also a Tu-95 next to it, which I really enjoy. The Tu-95 is a fearsome aircraft to look at, but we don't see it too many at displays because it's just so big. Staffordshire Moorlands always have a spectacular display, and this time it was no different. I think they used to have another display within their display, and I always end up missing it. So if you've done that again this year and I missed it, I'm really sorry. But I thought you had an incredible array. Some really unique and interesting dioramas placed among some spectacular singular pieces. The first thing I saw on Dartmoor's display was that incredible large-scale Typhoon, but then you see the Partout Suisse F5, which obviously is my favourite on the table, as an aerobatic display team stan. The Romania table is one we see at most Telford shows, and I really enjoy it. They continue to have the scene of the museum in Bucharest, which has sort of aircraft in quite a sorry state. As far as I'm aware, the museum has not really changed, and I really hope to see it one day before it, well, fully disintegrates. I really enjoyed the references to Captain Scarlet on this table, but importantly there was a Victor, which is my favourite of the V-Bombers, in camo scheme, which again is my favourite of the schemes for the Victor, so won me over straight away there. I'm not sure if this was part of something else, but it was down to scale Hangar 182, so that's what I put it down as. I really love this because it's interactive. You can go and press the buttons to make the prop spin. I wish I understood electronics because I would love to make mine do these, but I have no idea how this works. But it was really cool. And then we have Manchester, who obviously we saw at the Bolton show, and are one of the northern competitors or contributors to the Telford display. A lovely display, although it's quite a small stand itself, they bring so much character to it, it feels double its size. In the next set we have Lancashire. Lancashire's display is massive. They have a massive table and they have a lot of Warhammer on here now, which is again something becoming quite prevalent in the scene, which I'm all for. Anything that brings people into the hobby, whether it's in a fantasy, sci-fi, or in real life modelling terms, like whatever it is, I'm happy to see it. And well, especially when the Warhammer's done to this sort of standard where it's just, I don't know, the colour schemes used on this table, just they're so pretty. A mix of purple and orange and green, it just stands out. It's not just like the same old scheme, they've really just made it their own. Warrington had what I controversially called the sexiest plane of all time, which is the Saab Lancer. Yeah, I know, everyone else thinks it's the Hunter, but in my opinion, they're wrong. The Lancer is so much nicer. Everything on the Wirral stand was to such a high standard, starting with these F-16s and then leading up to the CF-100 that you see in the middle, which is just, you never see that in a large scale anyway. And then they had, again, some Warhammer, they had some sci-fi. It was just a really lovely range, but everything was done to an incredible standard, including this FW-190, which is being, I guess, repaired or teared down. You can already see what's going to be my draw on this table, which is the Kant 1007, the Italian tri-engined bomber, but again, Merseyside's overall display was to a really high standard. I love the Swedish, at Hampton as well. Milton Keynes stands has a Warhorse replica, I guess, although in miniature it's a replica, and whilst I was there they were talking about the creation of it and said that it basically moves the same as the real, I guess, puppet or animatronic. I don't know what it's classed as. They said like literally it just, the ligaments and stuff move exactly as the real model, which I think is amazing. I didn't realise it did that. Amazing. The Dornier on display on this stand is incredible. It's such a hard aircraft to get right and it has so many engines and delicate parts, but they did a fabulous job. Despite the SR-71 being the prominent aircraft on the stand in its big black glory, actually what took my attention was the German prototypes at the end. Again, it's just sort of my thing really, I guess. West Kent just had some living pieces with the German biplane trainer, but then they also had a giant pink Spitfire, and how could I not like that? It matches my hair. Yes, I know, it's the photo reconnaissance variant used by the RAF, but hey, it does match. IPMS Gloucester is a lovely stand, and they host a show every year, and I always intend to go to it, and I just never end up getting the time to go to it, or it clashes. But they've got such a spectacular stand with so many unique features, including their sort of Blood Bowl, what they said was like the Gloucester rugby team. They had dedication to obviously like Frank Whittle, the first Gloucester jet, and then they also have some really cool like Gundam dioramas on top too. Like there's just so much here. And heading over to Crewe, I'm just going to say from the outright, like, yes, I've definitely taken a picture of this before, but not with my new camera. So yeah, the Dambusters Lancaster sort of photo scene is definitely what I took pictures of here, but it's just amazing. Armenian had a really good example of a modern Russian type, which I think is labelled the SU-57, and yeah, it's just a really fantastic example of the type. Now, since I've been playing War Thunder with Mr. Modeler more, I've actually learned a bit more about the Churchill. I've used it in War Thunder actually quite a lot since last year, so I've learned a bit more about it. I have a bit more of an interest in it. This one was designed to look like a tanker lorry, to try and fool people, and there were so many different variants, including bridge layers, raid layers, like minesweepers, and this is like a captured German one. There was a Russian one on the table as well, and there's obviously the crocodile variant, which is the flamethrower one. Like, yeah, I've grown to love the Churchill. Another one of the examples I mentioned earlier of having more Gundam on display with the early risers. The early risers stand is amazing. They always have a theme each year, or at least since I've seen them anyway, and this year they went for What We Do, showcasing each member's modelling style, which I thought was a really cool theme. It allows people just to really show whatever the hell they like. I went to Boscombe Down show a couple of years ago, and I'll try and go next year, but it's like 5 hours for me, so it's a long way away, but it's a really lovely show. So if you ever get a chance to go to Boscombe Down's model show, make sure you do so, because you also get to go around the whole museum as well. This year was obviously looking at Operation Overlord, and they just did a spectacular job, and I love the Sterling, so I had to get a picture of it. Salisbury had the Griffin, which was a French experimental aircraft, so obviously that's one of my favourites, along with the Vatul, which is the French jet bomber. Age's nostalgic vintage modeler is one that I think is interesting as sick, because it's going to change over the years, because the kits that are going to be nostalgic are going to change depending on the people in the club. So I'm really curious to see how this club changes over time. And the Cold War SIG is really important to help showcase this era of history. I had some younger people at the show, and I mean, I'm not exactly old myself, but saying like they don't really know a lot about the Cold War, and so it's really cool to help people understand history with these models. Classic British Kits is a lovely stand because I really like how they did their displaying. I don't really know, like, I want to call them like silhouettes or mini dioramas, but they're really cool. Northern England airfields is another one that I've probably taken pictures of everything on here by now. I didn't take a picture of the Sycamore helicopter again, you'll be glad to know. If there was anything new, I hope I got it. I did try and get a picture of the Lynx, and I got it slightly out of focus, so I apologise for that. But here it is anyway, because it just looked amazing. North Riding had a room pool bunker which had a tank turret, which was something that did genuinely happen, but it wasn't super common, but it's really cool to see it in models. One of the standouts this year was done by the Trainer Sig, which was 50 years of the Hawk, and this is absolutely phenomenal. They did every single operator of the type, they did every single mark of the type as well. Like, they just had everything. I absolutely adored this as a aerobatic display team stan as well. Like, obviously I love this. Probably not worth me talking that much about Boltons, because you can just go and watch the Bolton model show video I did where they had like an even bigger stand. I would always love the like double figured single gripping all in splinter camo scheme as well, and like the Canadian Air Force stuff here as well. Obviously the Canadian Air Force being 100 this year, as you will have known from React this year. Like, yeah, really lovely stand. Church having some really interesting Soviet airliners and a tanker at the back as well. Like, just a really, really interesting choice of subjects. West Midlands Police is another one you may want to go and watch, the Blue Lamp Model Show, where I did a lot of their stuff already, but they had even more here, and I can't believe that they have like 3 giant Lancasters. Kind of amazing, because, like, how do people have the time and skill to do these? My favourite thing on the East Kent stands were the, well, weirdly, the destroyed things. I know, it sounds weird, but now you can see the Buccaneer coming to you and then the Jet Provost. It makes sense, right? I think these are just really interesting displays. The Danish SIG remains to have one of my favourite F-16 displays, which is with the sort of the red with the Danish cross across it. I love it. And Italia SIG did a unique tribute sort of to like Piaggio this year, which I thought was really interesting, especially because we get to see the Piaggio P108, which is the only like 4-engined Italian bomber of World War II, but was like kind of bad. But I love that aircraft just because it was such a tragedy. Sci-fi and fantasy have clearly caught wind of the Godzilla trend with the new Godzilla film that came out that was actually pretty good. But they also have a lot of other things here, including several references to Terminator, and we have another army of Daleks. Oh, and they also had a Rave Dart from Stargate Atlantis, which I'll fight anyone to say that Stargate Atlantis was the best Stargate series. Another example of Gundam becoming so much more popular within the modelling scene is with the Gunpla SIG. I think they're also called the Gunpla and like robot model SIG, but it's just an incredible SIG. I don't know enough about like Gundam as a whole. I've only watched like the original 2 series, mostly because of Mr. Modeler, but I'm starting to understand it, and I've built like one in my time, even if it was a Pokemon. And there's not a lot to say, this by Hong Kong models was spectacular. The Finnish and Swedish SIGs look at aviation from both of the nations, and yet that's a Valmet Vinca in the front, the one with the orange tips, which is a Finnish-built trainer. In fact, Valmet was the last Finnish manufacturer, or at least like the last one to build their own original aircraft, whereas Sweden of course still has its own industry, with the Viggen, Gripen and Draken all on display here. Well, the Draken and Viggen are, the Gripen was displayed on an earlier stand. North Somerset had a fantastic sense of humour, with my favourite thing on their stand being the red sparrows, which are just simple like red birds as you can see here, that all had like flappy wings. One of them stopped working, but that doesn't ruin the effect, it still looks absolutely phenomenal. Kaylee or Keelia, I never say it right, so I'm sorry, but they had not quite finished setting up when I first came round, so I went back to them a bit later on, and their stand is incredible. I just can't get over the level of work on display at Telford overall this year. This stand was in particular very varied and had some really creative ideas. Obviously having the Civil War here, but then having this in-flight refueling, which is just done on a transparent stand, which I'd never even thought to do, and then they said they put it into the wall just from that wire, which is genius. I really need to start doing that with some of mine because it's really space saving. Whilst I don't tend to feature traders, I did sort of speak to these guys just when I was going round, and they sort of recognised me, and I really liked the windmills that were on display, which is why we sort of stopped originally to have a look at them, so I just thought I'd throw them in here as well. With their little Swiss contingent, it's Portsmouth. The MiGSIG has the Fairest there, which is one of my favourite kind of what-if aircraft, and they've done an amazing job on this. The Soviet aircraft thing is interesting, so obviously there's a lot of Lend-Lease stuff on here, as you can see, from America and obviously other allied nations, and then it just like gradually evolves into Soviet only aircraft, so it's quite a unique stand. Now, I know nothing about armour, so I'm not going to talk over the next couple because I just don't know enough about any of them, sadly. Interrupting my silence for a minute to talk about MT miniatures, just because they had this like MTM miniature air tattoo, and like I literally just stopped to film it because I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I think this is all potentially 3D printed, but it just looked amazing. Yeah, I couldn't not film it. Sadly, without the Spanish Civil War this year, Wolverhampton have still put on a absolutely amazing display. Sadly, again, a lot of it is tanks, and I don't know enough about tanks, but it looks really, really impressive. ASVC, I've definitely not had to record that several times. One Born had a really lovely stand. I really liked the flag in the background, it was just a really cool display. There were a couple of standouts, including the Saunders Road Jet and also the Heinkel in Romanian colours, along with a couple of more unusual displays, including a bust and figurine, and then like one of like the bookshelf models. Again, unfortunately, I don't know loads about sort of military air vehicles, so I'll let you guys in the comments fight this one out. What's the best here? And heading over to New City yet again, we see another Lysander. Again, I feel like people just knew, right? Because it just feels so weird that like everyone's built it and then a new one's been released. It's so funny. Now, I don't really do awards, and I'm going to say like Stafford also kind of had this, but this to me was just the cleanest and most original stand. So for me, this is like the original stand, and the only reason I didn't give it to Stafford was because like they did chess, and like although they did it amazingly, I've never seen like a video game stand like this at a model show ever in my life, and the quality of the work here was just absolutely phenomenal. So I guess I gave this one like my best in show, because I couldn't get over it. And we were discussing it, and I think me and Miss Model just both thought this was absolutely spectacular, but I've also given it to Stafford as well. But yeah, both of you guys, like, amazing. .580 model has had an amazing SL71 right front and centre of their stand, and it's just amazing. I really need to build one in one's on a second. Tyneside had a couple of really interesting civilian aircraft, including like African Airlines or East African Airlines, which I've not really seen before, and a Caravelle. Black Rifle are an online model club, which is great because for a lot of people, going to a model club can be a lot of work, and you always have the issue of like finding time to actually travel to one and making sure you have everything with you, so it's a really cool idea. I really loved their stand as well. It had so many different things, from gunpowder to Warhammer to like aircraft to tanks to dioramas. It just had everything on here. It was really cool. And obviously they had a couple of like other content creators models on here as well, including Sully, who I did a collab with not too long ago. We now have the work for Mulberry Harbour and Barry Sharman. These are not projects I know enough about, but I will say all of them are absolutely spectacular, and just take your time to really enjoy these and pause them to have a look at them in more detail, because they're amazing. We then head over to Southampton, and the first thing that caught my eye was the two BSG Vipers, both for the variants, which I really like. Ramsey have a Frog Tempest and V1 kit on display here, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed like the variety on the motorbikes as well. Like they're very different schemes. I don't know like what that means because I don't know motorbikes well enough, but it looks really cool. And I say I don't really have favourites, but I mean, anyone who watches my videos enough, and especially the Telford ones, knows that Sig 144 are like, I just have like a soft spot for them. They're tiny models. They could literally, like, some of them are smaller than my fingernails. They do such interesting and unique subjects, and I just really enjoy them. They are like friends of the channel really at this point. I speak to them like, some of them like more regularly now anyway, and I see them like, because I see them like every show. So yeah, I'm really sorry, but they are going to have a lot of their stuff featured here. So sit back and enjoy Sig 144 because they're amazing. We now head over to Plymouth, again a really varied display and one we've seen several times at different shows. Project Cancel, and then next to them Project What If are amazing. I love them, and they have the Armstrong Whitworth, what would you call it? Like the transport jet. I can't remember what you called it, but yeah, they have that. I love that. I literally bought a book on that recently. Yeah, I always love Project Cancelled. It's such an eye-opener. And you see the airborne early warning aircraft at the back. It's such a dumb looking aircraft, but I'm sad that got cancelled just because it would have been so dumb. And we similarly have the what if sick, but instead of it just being things that like were cancelled necessarily, it's also just like looking at like projects that could have been, or even just like fictional things. So it's really cool. More Gundam on Gunpla on display here with Covington and Warwickshire, but obviously that giant artillery piece takes up the very centre. And we also have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Then we have the Scale Fanatics. You have a really interesting Lancaster cockpit, which seems to be becoming like a trend at the moment. And then we have Monster Mayhem, who look at, I guess, like film references. Not necessarily just monsters, but sort of general film as well. And Clear's another show that I tend to go through regularly, but I don't think I went to it this year, unfortunately, but I have been to it for several years now, and it's a really good show, so that's one I definitely need to get back on the radar. And, I mean, you can tell, the quality of their kits are amazing, the show must be too, right? Mercier here, another Warhammer stand, which I love, and they have a French vampire and a lovely example of the Gloucester Javelin in all white. Then head over to Just for Fun Modelers, and They really are what they say on the title, with lots of really interesting dioramas, as you can see with the Pringles. And then they also have some with like fish cans, and they have like one later with like dessert. It's just amazing, really creative. The Pool Vikings, one that I've seen at many shows now, particularly at Mons, obviously more down south, and they have a giant Necron army on display. Now, whilst I know nothing about cars and motorcycles, I did find this one interesting just because there's a lot of film references, which obviously this made it really accessible to me. Not to say that like all of you need to do that, and I won't talk over all the next stands because I just don't know cars well enough, but I really enjoyed this, especially the wacky races. Okay, so here's the other winner of like my best in show and best display, because I couldn't pick between the two to be quite honest, they felt too unfair, is Stafford. Stafford always do themes and they always look amazing, but this is just next level for them and really elevated what they do. And you've kind of screwed yourself for the next show, guys, because now I'm expecting this. But you guys did amazing. They had cliffs on either side of the British Channel, on either side of the board, and then it was like a chess game that you could play with like all real squadrons with all real pilots that were all in the conflict. Like, it's amazing, like honestly god tier work. Whilst I know nothing about trucks, I always love including the truck sig because, again, it's another large area of modelling that, although I don't partake in, I appreciate the workmanship that goes into it. And that also goes for the next one, which is road and track. This time, instead of just having Thunderbirds or Captain Scarlet, we actually had Stingray on display as well, which I know it's probably just for me, but Stingray was always the one I just didn't enjoy, so I love that someone else enjoys it. Phoenix models show even more that Gunpla is becoming increasingly mainstream and popular, although I think one of the Gundam figures is holding the Spear of Longius from Evangelion, if I'm not mistaken, so I don't know. Obviously Fun Spotting had that incredible C-47 diorama, which you just you cannot ignore. It's so well done. And Peterborough have one of my favourite films on their stand. Yep, Porco Rosso. The Aviation Diorama gang have, well, incredible aviation dioramas, unsurprisingly. And I nearly missed what was my favourite thing on the Shropshire stand, which is the Dairy Milk Spitfire. Genius! The Night Fighter Sig is another Sig that has grown since I first saw it. I remember seeing this with a couple of things on the stand, and now it's huge. I'm very jealous that Wizbag, or Wizbeach, I never know how to say it, has the Airfix Woodpecker. I don't have that as the one of them I don't have, the one bird I don't have, so it looks so good. I don't want to make another bird. We do have a couple of Airliner 6 coming up and they all look absolutely fantastic, including this one with an Argosy and a Britannia. And then we have this Civil Aviation SIG, which makes me dread the Concorde that I am building currently, and how I know I'm going to hate finishing it. The Fokker float plane, or the Fokker TV I believe it's called, is my favourite on the West Suffolk stand, and that's pretty much just because it's like a really unique Dutch aircraft. I really love the two examples of the Provost on this stand, and also the Buccaneer with its nose folded outwards. I always call this Belvoir, but it's Bevo, I believe? Either way, however the same name, because I always say it wrong. And they love like the Vulcan diorama with it sort of flying outwards. The Canberra has a really nice unique paint scheme on it, but what I really enjoy is the lightning, just like it's a really cool stand. The Wardle 1 trench design on that Norfolk biplane is just absolutely stunning. I think I actually knew a tank on this one, although Miss Modeler helped. The M3 Lee. Really cool paint scheme as well, like with its like ombre effect. I really enjoyed the axe wings on this stand, and I also enjoyed like the winter scene they had as well. I'm not sure if we've seen the Land Rover SIG before, but it was really welcome. I really like the sheet diorama. It's just, yeah, Reminds me of Wales. And apparently this was 2.6, but I filmed it all as one, so I apologise. I guess it makes sense though, because like NASA SIG and Spaceflight SIGs are going to have some crossovers. But incredible. I, again, don't know enough about them, but just really enjoy these guys. Such good work. All important, have a huge Hercules. I want to say it's 1/48 scale. It's ginormous. I didn't even know they did them in that scale. The UK Army Aviation SIG again has a focus on the Apache and Lynx, which I love because the Lynx, I miss it. And then we have Rutland, which has the Acro Delta's J35, which I love because I've recently just done that, although theirs is in 1.8, and they had all their balloons to celebrate 25 years, which, yay! Now, it's not very often that we see like full armies on display, especially either from historical or fantasy settings, and yet South Somerset did that this year. And West Glamorgan continue that with an example of what I want to say is a winged hussar, if I understood it correctly. And thank you, I believe it's Colin Morgan who made this diorama, that they let me go around the back as well so I could get shots of it from all angles. I did see this last year, I didn't get to see around the back last year, and around the back is just as spectacular as the front. It's an incredible diorama. And all work here for Battlestar Galactica is superb. Although I don't really like the original Battlestar Galactica, I'm much more of like the reinvented series. It's still so cool to see, and obviously I understand all the models. You can add something I saw in a couple of stands, but seems to be a bit of a dying trend, which is just a cockpit on its own. We see a lot more, but I don't think that's as common anymore, sadly. Newark have a collection of guns on display. Again, this seems to be a trend that's gone downwards. I remember in the 2010s everyone was making model guns, but that doesn't seem to be as common now. Now when you see the close-ups on the Beaufort and the water effects, just hold your breath, because your breath's going to get taken away. And then we have a stand that we've seen actually at a couple of shows that I've actually been to this year, even though I've not been to that many. It's Universal Modelling Society. As usual, the Great War Sig is absolutely fantastic. They always put on amazing work, and their newer models this year were no different. They always do such a great job, and I know I need to do more World War I aircraft. Just give me a chance, I will do it, I promise. Then we have two SIGs that relate to sort of naval stuff. We have the South Atlantic SIG, and that's followed by Submarine SIG. I generally always put this in my head with What If and the project cancelled is under new management, which is aircraft that are in services other than where they were built or originally operated. And then we have two SIGs that I genuinely thought were one originally, which is the classic British Jets and the AAA SIG. And wow, so many airliners, so little time. I just take pictures of ones that makes me think of like the airliners that flew on as kids. Then we have the Mediterranean Theatre of Operations. Oh my gosh, I can't see properly, and it's looked at Greece as well. As we saw right at the start of the video, this follows the trend of Between the Wars, and I really enjoy this because, like we said earlier, although this is the military side of it, it's a subject that often gets forgotten. I want to say this is by Brompton because I remember seeing this at one of the other shows, which I think was Brompton, but either way, really love the Act of Valor because it's just such a good education piece. Then we have one of the smaller SIGs, the Latin Aviation SIG. Really love seeing this here. I think I said Brompton earlier, but it's Brampton. Apologies. But yeah, then we have Brampton. And this is just like a giant tribute to Airfix with the Airfix SIG here, so just like sit back, relax with some food because this is a long one. And the final stand of the year is the Zeppelin Brockhouse collection. This is really cool, like so many airships. Oh, never seen anything like this before. I don't think it's been at the show. If it has, I've missed it, because this is amazing. Thank you so much for being here, guys. It's been incredible going through Scale Model World 2024 with you. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen here today. If you have done, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video, and there will be more coming out about Telford. See you later, guys. Bye!